Back to business for the Buckeyes. Improvement week is over. It is on to Marshall. Let's get this week started with a Boren Blitz. That's Zach Boren. I am Austin Ward. This is the Podcast Daily. It's Monday. I just hated it, Zach. A week so early in the year with no Saturday game for the Buckeyes. It felt like it was in the wrong spot, but it's over now, and the Buckeyes get to go back, and we'll see what they really emphasize during Improvement Week as they get back on the practice field in the days ahead.
You want to know something? College football did a dirty thing to some of us like 4 or 5 years ago when they created this week 0 thing, right? And it was 4 weeks ago, and you get week 0, and I'm just foaming at the mouth because I'm so excited to watch the Buckeyes play. And then some scheduling person at the Big Ten office pulled one over on us even more, giving us a bye week in week 3. And my goodness, it's tough. It's tough. You watch all this football, you get so excited. You know, you saw the Bucks improve from week 1 to week 2, and now you got improvement week, and just another bye week of sitting around and watching football. The great news is this little run that they go on over the next 4 weeks before their next bye week could be a really good test for them because, in my opinion, I think the tests are going to become harder and harder each and every week.
Yeah, it is set up in a really interesting way, Zach. So Ohio State's got Marshall on Saturday at noon in the Horseshoe. And then you're going on the road. You start Big Ten play at Michigan State, which has shown, some signs of life here early in the season. Then you have a really fundamentally sound Iowa defense. That's going to be a physical game. You'd expect that to be another step up in competition. And then Oregon, which looked a little bit shaky in those first couple of weeks, but seems to maybe have found some footing on Saturday. So this is that key stretch, and we spent all offseason saying you got to make sure if you're Ohio State, you're ready for Oregon, but you have to also take each step one at a time as they come. And I don't know that everyone was thrilled that they had to go through that improvement week and sit at home on Saturday coming off of that. But, if you're building and you're taking it 1 week at a time, that was just the next step in the foundation there.
You have to make it a positive. You have to say, hey, listen, I know the bye week's week 3. Normally use your bye week to get some rest, get your bodies healthy. You're not really going to have that week 3, but you have to continue to build the momentum. And you saw them do that week 2 against Western Michigan. You hope they can keep that going into Marshall. And yes, you hit the nail on the head. It's like you little by little, the competition is going to get better and better. So yes, you have to come out fast again, like you did against Western Michigan, against Marshall. Then you go up against a Michigan State team who I don't think anyone would have really thought that team could be undefeated coming into that game. You're going to get a dynamic quarterback who might not be the best passer, but is really athletic and can use his feet, just like you're going to see 2 weeks later against Oregon. And then you already said it, you're going to face a very fundamentally sound team in Iowa, a very good defense in Iowa. That both of those matchups, Michigan State and Iowa, get you ready for the showdown in Eugene that I think everyone across college football has had circled from the beginning of the season.
So a week ago, Zach, we're breaking down a 56-0 win. It's like pretty much every phase felt like it was pretty effective. Maybe they could have done a little bit more in special teams. That's nitpicking, as we're prone to do occasionally when we establish the standard and hold up Ohio State to what they want to achieve on a week in, week out basis. But as you thought about it during the off week, when you're getting away for a little vacation and your mind drifted back to Ohio State football, what do you still want them to focus on? What do you want to see by Saturday? And then we're talking about on the next Boren Blitz next week.
I think you saw them run the football a lot better against Western Michigan, but I still think that's the biggest question mark on this team. You have a two-headed monster we've talked about with Travion Henderson and Quinton Judkins that are as electric as they come, but the issues of running in between the tackles might still be there after the first 2 weeks. You know, you've seen a lot of the runs that were broken against Western Michigan went to the outside. You saw Quinshawn on, you know, the super long one that got called back, go to the outside. Travion in week 1 went to the outside. You're still waiting for that big play to hit right between the tackles. And that is something that they can build on. That's something that I think now getting Donovan Jackson back is going to be a huge asset for them. In a huge just emotional swing, because you've got a senior who has a lot of starts sitting there on the offense line. Now you're putting him right next to Seth McLaughlin, Seth, who, you know, who's been playing great through the first 2 weeks, probably been the strongest guy on the offensive line the first 2 weeks. That would be my biggest thing. You know, we talked after week 1, you want to see the explosive plays, but you saw that against Western Kentucky. As a defense, you have to continue to build, add more stuff to your arsenal. You know, obviously, I think you're going to get a stronger test this next week against Marshall than you did the first 2 weeks. But hey, keep on getting turnovers, keep on getting after the quarterback on the defense side, keep on running the ball on offense. Those are the biggest things that I think you have to put a focus on going into the Marshall week.
How much of that, Zach, do you think is just getting Donovan Jackson back? Because a lot of scouts, talent evaluators, mock drafters, they say, well, Ohio State's best NFL draft prospect on the offensive line is Donovan Jackson. So clearly that would be a good thing for the Buckeyes. But like, is it like a dramatic elevation over, like, because I thought Austin Serveld played pretty well. Like, does that immediately fix some of the things you're talking about? Like, I guess that's what I'm curious to see, how different it looks between the tackles on Saturday against Marshall compared to the first 2 weeks without him. Like, it wouldn't surprise me at all if it's much better, but I also didn't feel like they were getting dragged down by the fact that he wasn't on the field.
No, I agree with you. Austin, I thought, played a lot better from week 1 to week 2. Where I think you're going to see more of an improvement is them opening up the playbook. And if you look back at the Zeke days, the J.K. Dobbins days, you know, even Mike Weber and Trey Sermon, what is something that all of those guys had? It was a mobile quarterback that could run and was a threat, right? And you've seen the past couple of years struggle with that. And that's because, hey, listen, when you show some kind of handoff, there is no threat whatsoever in the quarterback position. So I think as they open up the playbook, let Will Howard get his hands on the ball, pull some of those on the read options, those ones in the middle are going to start to break. I mean, if you think back to the Zeke days, if you think back to the Mike Weber days, not Mike, J.K. Dobbins days, it's like so many of those big runs that you saw them hit right up the middle were read options that the defensive end and linebacker went to the quarterback, and there's just a gaping hole right down the middle. And so the more they get comfortable with Will Howard running the football, and obviously they knew they didn't need Will Howard to run the football the first 2 weeks and probably don't need him against Marshall as well. But the more they go to that and the more the threat that Will shows, guess what? Those big runs are going to start popping.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting in week 2, Zach, like the command and control and decision-making from Will Howard with the RPO. I think that's where there's still like way more for this Ohio State offense to get to. And that's got to be, I think, pretty exciting to see how this Will Howard and Ryan Day called it like an evolution of the offense. Like it's not done yet. There's still more that they can unleash here.
I think there's so much. You talk about RPO. I mean, I think with Ohio State, you're even going to see a lot more play action. Like there was barely any play action. So once you start running literally running the football a lot better than what you have been, and it's not like they haven't been running it well. But now, guess what? You get more guys in the box, especially with a running threat quarterback. Now you can take the deep shots. That's what you saw J.T. Barrett, Justin Fields. Like, those guys were so big on showing run and then getting the ball behind the safeties. And so many times, I don't think people realize this, but when you have a running quarterback, the way that you account for it on the defensive side is you have to bring that extra safety into the box, right? Like that safety is kind of that free hitter that is going to make you right, because so many times the linebackers are going to go after the running back in that situation, that up safety, whatever it might be, whether the free, they're strong, that guy needs to account for that running quarterback. So now guess what? Now you're playing a lot of single high, which Ryan Day has always talked about. We like taking shots against single high safeties. That's why you've seen so many defenses the past, 3 years, show too much or show so much of too high safety, because it forces you to run the football and they know the quarterback's not a running threat. And so you're going to see a lot more of that. I think we haven't seen any of Travion and Quinshon in the backfield, and I don't want to talk about too much because I don't want people to be like, "Oh my God, it's coming." Yeah. But we have not seen that yet, right? Which I think we can both agree that you're going to see that at some point, especially in Chip Kelly's offense with what he did with Michael James and who was it, Barner, the other running back, in
Barner,
in those two running back systems. So that's yet to come. I mean, there's just so many things, and obviously, I don't want to get on this topic, but I'm going to mention it. The more comfortable Jeremiah Smith gets in this offense, I think the more tricks or the more things that they're going to be able to do, because now you have a dude who's an absolute stud that's comfortable, that now you can start doing gimmicks with him.
Yeah, that's the other part. When we talk about the evolution and continuing to develop, there are moments where Jeremiah Smith still, when Ohio State talks about being a complete receiver, whether there were alignment issues, a penalty in week 1, he's so good. I think that we just assumed that he would go out and be perfect, and he's not. I think that's the highest praise we can give. He's already putting up these ridiculous numbers, and he's still figuring out what the way the game works. The pure raw athleticism, standing still on a stop route and then going to 21.7 miles per hour, which is what we found out. I thought it was faster. I thought we were going to see something around 23. But that stuff, the natural athleticism is clear. I think that's the terrifying part. If you are going to be playing Ohio State in another month, or maybe by the time that Oregon rolls around, what's Jeremiah Smith look like then, as he understands more and Ohio State uses him more, and the playbook gets more expansive for him? That's another element here for this evolution that we're talking about for Ohio State offensively.
Well, the other thing that's great is the more Jeremiah Smith gets into this offense and the more they let him be that marquee guy like you talked about. Now you start talking about a guy that, in my opinion, we have shorted throughout the entire season so far, and that's Emeka Egbuka, right? And that's a guy that now, going into the season, everyone was saying, hey, he had to be out wide on his own. He had to be that Marvin Harrison type of guy, JSN kind of guy. Well, now guess what? You can put Jeremiah out on the outside, and you can put Emeka in the slot where he is so dangerous, because guess what? Now those safeties need to lean to Jeremiah's side, knowing that he's a threat. And now you've got Emeka lined up on that slot corner or that linebacker that has made him the guy he is up to this point in his college career, and has made him the NFL prospect that he is. And so this offense is starting to evolve into being able to put guys in positions that make them the most successful. And that's when things get dangerous.
It's wild to think about. It's also crazy to wrap your mind around 6 points given up in 2 games for the Silver Bullets. So I don't know. Is there anything, Zach, that this team needs to do better as they ramp up towards this key stretch, starting with Marshall?
They didn't get a turnover against Western Michigan, right? Yeah. So maybe you could talk about that. Maybe that could have been a goal of
too many 3 and outs. They didn't have enough opportunities.
Right? The other thing is, I watched a ton of college football on Saturday, and it was great being able to relax and do that. But so many times people were talked about teams not giving up a touchdown. And the big one was Georgia hasn't given up a touchdown all year. There was another game I totally forget. And they were raving about the defense not giving up a touchdown on the year. And I'm sitting here like, well, Ohio State hasn't, right? Ohio State hasn't given up a touchdown. So I don't know what more you can do from an Ohio State perspective. It's not like they've given up the big play. It's not like they haven't gotten some turnovers. It's not like they haven't gotten after the quarterback. They've done all those things. So from my standpoint, you just have to continue to build on it, right? You have to constantly be chasing perfection from a defense standpoint. And that's really hard to do. But you have to set goals. And that's what I bet Jim Knowles and his defense staff was doing this week of like, hey, listen, this is what we did the first 2 weeks. This is what our goals need to be here on out. Like, these are the expectations now of what this defense can be and who we ought to be.
All right. Yeah, I think we don't have to dwell on that. And we already had Buck IQ to talk about extra defensive stuff last week as well. So that just leaves finding something in special teams, which is like an endless conversation, it feels like, for Ohio State. But after both of the first two games, I thought it was interesting, Zach, like Ryan Davis bringing up the first kickoff of the season, the return, thought that was blocked up. It could have been a score maybe. He wasn't happy about it. And then he said after week two, Jaden Bauer had an error there with the fair catch and let the ball hit the ground. And he said they were going to evaluate their options there to handle kickoff return. So if you were in charge here this week, Zach, would you make a change there? And who would you like to see back there?
Man, kickoff return is so hard because it's so difficult to break one, right? And you see the evolving play in the NFL, and they obviously changed up the kickoff for a reason because guys are moving so fast. It's hard to block guys at that rate of speed. The collisions are massive. And to be honest, when you start getting into bigger games, so many of those kickers are just going to put it out of the end zone, right? You face an Oregon, you face a Michigan, a Penn State. They're not even going to let it happen. They're just going to kick it out of the end zone and say, screw it. Here we go. Let's go play offense and defense. So kickoff return is such a different play, I would say. Now, in regards to punt return, that's where you can flip the field. That's where, hey, listen, guys are matched up at the line of scrimmage. There's no running start. It's, hey, listen, we can get pad on a pad right away and let's grind our butts off for 10 to 14 seconds down the field. I don't think you can change anything with Brandon Inniss because we've already talked about it. The attitude that he brings is something that we haven't seen in a long time in a punt returner here.
Yeah.
He's due to break one, especially in a big game. I can see him breaking one from that standpoint. So yeah, I don't think you can change anything there. Maybe set up some different returns. I know so many times, and Nick Saban was talking about this. Nick Saban was talking about this on College Game Day, and he talked about it from a defensive interception philosophy of whenever guys got an interception in Alabama, they always told their guys, returner, go to the numbers and run straight up the numbers. And from that standpoint, it tells the defenders, hey, listen, I know I need to block my guys in or out, and I know where the returner is going. So many times in a punt return, you see that one guy make the play because of he doesn't know where the returner is, right? And you've seen so many people go away from those wall returns because of the blindside blocks and things like that. When I was playing, we used to set up wall returns all the times because guys could just tee off on them, right?
Right.
Now you don't have that, but I do think there's some variations of it where you can play with it because you have a guy like Brandon Inniss who has the speed, who has the athletic ability to set up that wall return, whether it be to the field or to the boundary. And so I think you need to do some different things on the punt return, or more dynamic things, I should say, to really go after it. And let's be honest, we haven't tried blocking a punt this year, right? Ohio State's always been huge ever since Urban Meyer got here on blocking punts. And you've got the dudes and the athletes this year to do it. Go get one of those.
There you go. Another thing on the to-do list coming out of Improvement Week, which fortunately is over. We can stop talking about it and just get ready to see Ohio State back out there on Saturday against Marshall. Can't wait for that. Long week to go, but a lot more coverage coming your way on the podcast. Great to get it started, as always, with Zach Boren. For Zach, I am Austin Ward. This has been the Podcast Daily. It's a Boren Blitz. We'll see you next time.